breathtaking especially when the stars seemed to shimmer against the blackness of space. But today there was something more. A strange glow appeared near a gas giant, a soft blue light that pulsed rhythmically. It didn't look natural. Ryan, come to the control room. Came a voice over the intercom. It was Captain Vera, calm, but with an edge of urgency. He nodded to himself and quickly made his way through the narrow metallic halls of the ship. He wasn't sure what he expected, but it was clear that crew was already on edge. When he arrived at the control room, the captain and the rest of the team were already gathered around the large screen. What is it? Ryan asked, looking up at the screen. Unidentified craft. Captain Vera said. Her eyes were narrowed as she studied the display. The glowing object was now clearer, shaped like a small, sleek ship. It seemed to hover near the gas giant just outside their usual mining range. This was something different, something beyond their daily routine. We need to investigate, the captain said, turning toward Ryan. You're the closest engineer to the shuttle bay. Prepare a team wheel. Need to get close enough to determine if it's a threat. Ryan nodded quickly. The captain's voice left little room for doubt. As an engineer, his job was to maintain the ship and its systems. But when it came to strange ships and mysterious lights, that responsibility seemed to stretch far beyond what he was used to. Minutes later, Ryan was in the shuttle bay putting on his spacesuit and gathering the tools he might need. His mind raced with possibilities. The idea of an alien ship, or even a new form of life, was almost too exciting to think about. He quickly joined the rest of the crew, a small team of 4, and climbed into the shuttle. The shuttle hummed to life, its engines firing up with a low growl. Ryan sat in the cockpit, his hands gripping the controls. The crew was silent, each person focused on their task. The glowing ship outside grew larger as they drew closer. Ryan couldn't help but feel a strange mix of awe and fear. What would they find? An alien race, a lost ship, or something more dangerous? As the shuttle approached, Ryan's pulse quickened. The ship they were getting close to didn't look like anything he had seen before, for it was sleek, almost crystalline, its surface gleaming in the dim light of the gas giant behind it. It shimmered like a living thing, and the longer Ryan looked at it, the more he felt a strange connection to it, as if it were calling out to him. The captain's voice crackled through the communication system. We'll dock with it and assess the situation. Keep your eyes open, everyone. Ryan felt a rush of adrenaline as the shuttle locked into place next to the alien ship. He couldn't believe it. They were about to board a ship that no one had ever seen before. Ryan, you're with me. The rest of you stay here and monitor the systems, the captain ordered. Ryan nodded, trying to keep his cool as he followed the captain toward the airlock. The door to the alien ship was smooth and seamless, as if it had been made from a single piece of material. No handles, no visible seams, just perfect. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and Ryan felt a strange chill run through him. He stepped onto the ship, his boots making the soft sound as they connected with the smooth surface. The inside of the alien ship was unlike anything he could have imagined. The walls seemed to pulse with a soft glow, and the air smelled fresh, as though it had been untouched for centuries. Stay close, Captain Vera whispered. Her voice was tense, but there was also a hint of awe. Ryan followed her down the corridor. The walls were lined with intricate patterns, glowing softly in the low light. It looked like the ship itself was alive, responding to their presence. As they moved deeper into the ship, Ryan's mind raced with questions. Who had built this ship? What kind of beings would need a ship like this? Suddenly, they turned a corner, and Ryan's heart skipped a beat. At the end of the hall stood a figure. It was tall, with shimmering skin that seemed to change color with every movement. The being's face was calm, but Ryan could see the intelligence in its eyes. It looked human, but at the same time it was not. Captain, Ryan whispered. Is this an alien? The captain nodded, her face tense. Yes, but more than that, this may be the most important discovery we'll ever make. Ryan took a deep breath. This was only the beginning, and he had no idea what was about to unfold. Ryan stood frozen, his eyes fixed on the alien. Standing before him, the being's skin shimmered with an almost ethereal glow, its long, slender limbs moving with an elegance that reminded him of a dancer. The alien's face was delicate, yet strong, framed by glowing markings that seemed to pulse softly with light. Captain Vera stepped forward, her expression cautious but respectful. She extended her hand in greeting, her voice steady. We Come in peace, I'm Captain Vera of the Aurora, and this is Engineer Ryan. The alien's gaze shifted from the captain to Ryan. Its eyes were a brilliant shade of violet, almost glowing in the dim light. It studied Ryan for a long moment, and he felt his heart skip a beat. There was something deeply intelligent and ancient in those eyes, a kind of wisdom that felt far beyond anything he had ever encountered. The alien did not speak. Instead, it tilted its head slightly, as though considering the situation. Its mouth opened, but the words that came out were strange, unlike any language Ryan had ever heard. Did it just speak? Ryan whispered, his voice a mix of awe and confusion. The captain nodded, her brow furrowed. Yes, but we can't understand it yet. Let's see if we can communicate through gestures. The alien then raised a hand, gesturing toward Ryan, then toward its own face. It appeared to be waiting for some kind of response. Ryan, still unsure of what was happening, tried to communicate in the only way he could think of. He gave a small, polite smile and said, "You're beautiful." As soon as the words left his mouth, a heavy silence fell over the room. The alien's violet eyes widened, and it stared at Ryan with an expression that was difficult to read. Captain Vera looked at Ryan in surprise, but she didn't interrupt. The alien's reaction was one Ryan hadn't expected. It slowly stepped closer to him, its hand reaching out in a graceful, almost hesitant manner. When it touched his face lightly, he felt a strange warmth spread through his skin. For a moment, Ryan thought the alien might attack back, but instead it simply stood there, its hand resting against his cheek, its eyes locked onto his with an intensity that made him feel as though his very soul was being examined. "Captain," Ryan whispered, feeling a little uneasy under the alien's gaze. Before the captain could respond, the alien spoke again. This time, the words were different. They weren't in the same strange language, but in a form of communication Ryan could almost understand. It was as if the being's thoughts were somehow becoming clearer in his mind. "You are the first to say such a thing to me. No one has ever called me beautiful." Ryan blinked in confusion. "What do you mean?" The alien's face softened. It didn't smile, but there was a gentleness in its expression that hadn't been there before. "We, the Vari, do not see beauty in the way you do. It is not simply about appearance. It is about the bond that exists between beings." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine as the words seemed to echo in his mind. He didn't fully understand, but he could sense that this was important. The alien, this being from another world, was somehow affected by the words he had said. Captain Vera stepped forward, carefully, her voice calm. "What does this mean? Is it an insult to you?" The alien looked at her, and Ryan noticed how its eyes softened further. "No, it is not an insult, but it is an ancient custom to recognize beauty in others in a way that goes beyond the physical. What you humans call beauty signifies much more to our kind. To hear it from one of your species is unexpected." Ryan's head swirled with thoughts. He had only meant to give the alien a simple compliment, something he thought might break the silence and make them more comfortable. He had no idea it would have such a powerful effect. The alien seemed to pause, then spoke again, its voice now steady and clear. "What you call beauty is sacred to us, and your words have stirred something deep within me." Ryan stood still, unsure of how to respond. It was clear now that his words had caused something profound to happen, but what exactly he was sure. He wasn't sure of much at this point. All he knew was that he had touched something within the alien, something that was beyond just physical appearance. Captain Vera exchanged a glance with Ryan, her expression unreadable. "We need to understand this. This could be the key to building a bridge between our species." Ryan nodded slowly, still processing everything, but deep down a strange feeling started to grow. The alien, with its glowing skin and wise eyes, was not as distant as he had first thought. There was something shared between them, something that went beyond language, beyond appearance, beyond the physical world entirely. Ryan stood still, his mind racing. He had never expected his simple compliment to lead to such a profound conversation with an alien being. The words of the Varar, of the mysterious creature standing before him, continued to echo in his mind. The alien who had introduced itself as Alva was still standing there, watching him intently. Her violet eyes glowed softly, filled with an emotion that Ryan couldn't quite place. He had never seen anything like her before. Her skin shimmered like polished crystal, and her delicate features seemed to glow with an inner light. Captain Vera's voice broke Through the heavy silence, Ryan, are you all right? Ryan blinked, his gaze shifting. From Alva to the captain, I'm fine, it's just I never imagined this would happen. The captain nodded, her face serious. I know, this is unlike anything we've encountered, but we need to understand what's going on here. Alvia, what you said earlier about beauty, what does it mean to your people? Alva's eyes softened further, and she took a slow step toward the captain, her movements graceful. As always, she didn't speak right away, as though choosing her words carefully. Ryan felt the weight of her silence, and he couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of awe. Beauty, Alva began, her voice resonating in Ryan's mind again, is not just how one looks, it is the reflection of one's spirit, of one's essence. We, the Viri, are born with a deep connection to the universe. When we recognize beauty in another, we are seen beyond the surface we are seeing. The soul, the core of what that being truly is. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. He had never thought of beauty in such a way. To him, beauty had always been something simple, something visual, a smile, a face, a kind gesture, but now hearing Alva speak of it in such a profound way, he realized that beauty was something far deeper, something he had never truly understood. I didn't know, Ryan whispered. I didn't understand what I was saying. I just— Alva raised her hand, stopping him. It is not your fault. Humans see beauty differently, and that is what makes you unique, but your words have awakened something within me. Ryan felt his cheeks flush. He wasn't sure if it was from the compliment he had given or from the unexpected reaction it had triggered in Alva. The Varar culture was so different from anything he had ever encountered. Every word they spoke, every action they took seemed to have layers of meaning that Ryan was only beginning to understand. Captain Vera, clearly still processing the information, turned to Ryan. This is important, the connection between your words and Alva's reaction. It's something we need to learn more about. It could be the key to understanding these beings, and perhaps even forming a bond with them. Ryan nodded, his mind still spinning. He had no idea that a simple compliment could be so powerful, so meaningful to an alien species, but now he realized that he was standing on the edge of something monumental, something that could change the fate of humanity forever. As the moments passed, Alva seemed to be lost in thought. Her glowing eyes stared at Ryan, studying him as though weighing the depth of his soul. Ryan didn't know how to respond. He had never felt so exposed in his life. He had always been a scientist, an engineer, a man of facts and logic, but now standing before an alien whose very presence seemed to challenge the limits of understanding, he felt small, insignificant. Finally, Alvia spoke again, her voice soft but firm. You call me beautiful, and in doing so you have initiated something rare. It is not just a compliment, but a bond, a recognition of something deep inside. This bond cannot be undone. It will remain between us, as it remains between all who share this understanding. Ryan looked at her, his throat dry. I am understand. What does this mean for us, for humanity? Alva's expression softened. It means that we are now connected. You, the human who called me beautiful, and I, the Vari, who was moved by those words. There is a path now between us, a bridge that no one else can walk unless they too understand the meaning of beauty. Ryan was stunned. He had never expected anything like this, a bond, a connection that was so deep and unbreakable based on a simple statement of beauty. The implications were enormous. Captain Vera spoke up again, her voice calm, but filled with urgency. This bond, it could be a way for us to communicate, a way for our species to connect on a deeper level. Alvia, can you teach us more? Can we learn what this bond means and how it works? Her eyes meeting Ryan's eye. Can teach you, but know this: to learn the truth of the bond, you must be open to it. You must not fear the unknown, for beauty in all its forms is not something to be controlled or understood by force. It is something to be experienced, shared, and cherished. The air inside the alien ship felt different now, thick with the weight of unspoken words. Ryan stood there, his mind racing, as he tried to process everything that had happened. The Varar, Alva had spoken of a bond, a connection between them, something that went beyond words or even appearances. It was a feeling, something deep and profound that neither he nor humanity had ever fully understood. Captain Vera's voice broke through his thoughts. Ryan, we need to focus. We've learned something extraordinary today, but we don't know where this path leads. We need to stay sharp. Ryan nodded slowly. The captain was right. He had felt something in that moment with Alvia, but there was so much more to understand. He was an engineer trained to think logically and solve problems, but this was beyond logic. It was something deeper, something he couldn't quite grasp. Alvia stood quietly watching them. Both her eyes were fixed on Ryan, a look of quiet understanding in her gaze. He couldn't tell if she was waiting for something, or if she simply didn't know what to say either. There was a stillness about her, a calm that seemed to radiate from within. We need to try to communicate better, Captain Vera continued, stepping closer to Alva. You've shown us that there's more to your people than just technology, but we need to understand how to bridge this gap. Can you teach us your language? Alva nodded, her movements slow and deliberate. Yes. But know this, our language is not like yours. It is not made of sounds, but of feelings. To speak it is to share your soul. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine at those words. The idea of sharing one's soul was not something he had ever thought about before. What did it mean? Could he really understand such a deep connection? Could humanity, with all its faults and fears, truly understand what Alv was offering? Captain Vera stepped forward, her face serious. We'll do whatever it takes to learn. We need to communicate to understand each other. If we are going to survive out here, we need to find common ground. Alva seemed to consider this for a moment, her gaze thoughtful. Then she spoke again. The first lesson is simple, but it will take time. The bond between us cannot be rushed. You must first learn to listen to hear, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Ryan looked at her, unsure of how to proceed. How could he learn to listen with his heart? It was a concept that was so foreign to him, to any human. He had always relied on science and logic, on facts and evidence. Emotions were something that couldn't be measured or calculated. We don't have much time, Captain Vera said, her voice firm. The Viri are powerful, but they are not the only species out here. We need to understand this bond, this connection, before others find us. Alva's eyes darkened for a moment, and Ryan could sense a shift in her mood. You are right to be cautious, she said softly. There are many who would seek to exploit your bond with us. Your people must be ready not just to understand the beauty of the connection, but also to protect it. Ryan swallowed hard. He hadn't thought of it, that if their bond with the Vari was something so deep, something so sacred, there would surely be others, perhaps enemies, who would want to use it for their own gain. Then how do we prepare? Ryan asked, his voice steady despite the unease in his chest. Alva's gaze softened as she looked at him. You must first learn to open yourselves to the unknown. Your people must be willing to embrace the unfamiliar, to let go of old fears and beliefs. Only then will you be able to understand what we share. The path forward is not just about knowledge, it is about trust. Trust, the word echoed in Ryan's mind. It was something humanity had always struggled with. Trust was fragile, easily broken, but perhaps in this strange and dangerous corner of the universe, it was the one thing they would need most. Captain Vera nodded, her voice calm. We will do our best, but this is new territory for all of us. Alva's expression grew more serious, her eyes narrowing slightly. You must not fear what you do not understand. Only then will you be able to truly learn. Your hearts must be open, and your minds must be clear. Ryan thought about her words. They felt so simple, yet so impossible. How could he, a trained engineer, begin to comprehend what Alva was saying? How could he possibly let go of everything he had known, everything that had made sense to him, and embraced something as intangible as trust, connection, and beauty? But deep inside, Ryan could feel the truth of Alva's words. There was something real here, something beyond the physical world, something that could change everything. We'll need time, Ryan said softly, but we'll try, we'll learn. The days that followed were filled with confusion and wonder. Ryan had always been an engineer trained to think logically and practically, but now he was being asked to understand something far more complex, something he couldn't measure with instruments or solve with formulas. He was learning to listen in ways he never thought possible. Alvia had given them a task to open their hearts, to listen not just with their ears, but with their souls. And so every day he and Captain Vera spent time with her, trying to grasp the depth of the face Ari language. It wasn't a language of words or sounds, but of feelings, emotions, and memories. Alvia had explained that every word they spoke was not just a simple sound, but a vibration of their entire being, shared with those who could Understand, Ryan tried to focus, but it was hard, it was difficult to let go of. Everything he knew about communication one evening, as the artificial light of the alien ship bathed them in a soft, calming glow. Alvia gathered them in a quiet room filled with strange symbols and patterns on the walls. Ryan and Captain Ver sat across from her, eager to begin. This will be your first lesson, Alvia said softly, her voice almost a whisper. You must focus on the connection, listen, and feel with your heart. The first lesson is to understand that beauty is not just in the eye, but in the soul. I will show you a memory, and you will feel it with me. Only then can you begin to understand. Ryan felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He wasn't sure how to feel. How could he, a human, ever hope to understand something so alien, so beyond his experience? But he was willing to try. Alvia closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Ryan watched her carefully, wondering what was about to happen. Then, without warning, the room seemed to change. The air grew thicker, and the symbols on the walls began to glow, faintly casting soft shadows. Ryan felt something stir within him, as though a part of him was reaching out, trying to connect with the alien energy around him. He blinked, trying to focus, but the world seemed to blur, and then he saw it, images, feelings, emotions, things he could not explain. This is a memory of my people. Alva's voice echoed in his mind, though she had not spoken aloud. It is a memory of the first time I saw the stars. We, the Viri, are born under the light of 1,000 suns, but when I was young, the first star I saw was different. It was not just light, but a promise of something beyond us, something beautiful, something that could not be touched, but only felt. This is beauty, the beauty of the universe. Ryan's heart began to race. He could feel the weight of Alva's words, not as sounds, but as something far deeper, as though he could feel the stars themselves. It was a warmth, a longing, a quiet joy that filled him completely. He had never known anything like it before, and then, just as quickly as it began, the vision faded, the room returned to normal, and the gentle hum of the ship filled the silence. Ryan was left stunned, his chest heavy with the emotions he had just felt. He glanced at Captain Vera, who looked just as overwhelmed. Do you understand now? Alva asked, her voice calm, almost serene. Ryan opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He could still feel the sensation of the stars, the beauty that Alva had shared. He had experienced it with her in some strange, profound way. It was as if a door had opened inside him, revealing something he had never known. Insisted, I don't know, Ryan finally said, his voice barely a whisper. I felt it, but it's hard to explain. It was like a part of me was seeing the universe in a way I never could before. Captain Vera spoke up, her voice steady. It's more than just seeing, it's about being with the universe, connecting with it, feeling it in every part of you. We've never had that before. Alvia nodded, her expression soft, softening. You are beginning to understand. To truly experience beauty, you must not just see or hear it, but feel it. Beauty is not separate from us. It is inside us and in everything around us. When you understand that, you will begin to understand my people, and perhaps your own. Ryan took a deep breath. The lesson was far more than he had expected. He had thought it would be something simple, like learning a new language, but this was something far more complex, something that went beyond anything he had ever studied. We have so much to learn, Ryan said, more to himself than to anyone else. Alva's eyes softened, and she gave a small, knowing smile. Yes. But remember, the journey is not a race. You must be patient. The connection will come with time, but only if you are open to it. Captain Vera stood up, stretching her legs. Will need to practice. This isn't something we can just learn overnight. The days passed in a blur. Every morning, Ryan and Captain Vera would sit with Alva, trying to learn more about the mysterious bond between humans and the Vari. At first, it had been difficult to focus, to let go of everything they knew about the world, but slowly they were starting to make progress, even if they couldn't fully grasp the depth of what Alvia was teaching them. The hardest part was learning how to feel the connection. It wasn't enough to just think about it or try to understand it logically. It was something that had to be experienced, something that could only be felt in the deepest part of their beings. Ryan had tried everything to let go of his doubts, but the more he tried to feel the connection, the more uncertain he became. What if he wasn't capable of understanding it? What if he was missing something important? He was lost. Thought one evening when Captain Ver approached him, her expression serious. Ryan, I know it's hard, but we can't stop. Now the Viri are offering us something that could change everything something. That could help us not just as individuals, but as a species we have to. Keep going, Ryan nodded slowly. He had heard her words, but something still weighed heavily on his mind. It wasn't just the challenge of understanding Alva's teachings, it was the fear of what this connection might mean for humanity. What if we can't do it, he asked quietly. What if we're not ready for what comes next? Captain Vera placed a hand on his shoulder. If we don't try, we'll never. No, this could be the key to everything. We have to trust in it. Ryan, we have to trust in each other. Ryan looked up at her, and for the first time in days, he felt a sense of clarity. She was right. They couldn't turn back now. The connection with the Vari was a bridge to something far greater than they could understand, and they had to take that step no matter how uncertain it felt. The next day, Alvia took them to a new part of the ship. The walls here were different, covered in intricate patterns that shifted and changed. As they moved, it was unlike anything Ryan had ever seen, a living work of art that seemed to respond to their presence. This is where the connection truly begins, Alva said, softly, her voice echoing in their minds. This is where we communicate not just through feelings, but through actions. The bond is not just about understanding each other, it is about becoming one. Ryan and Captain Vera exchanged a glance. Words were strange, almost frightening, but Alva's presence was calming. She led them to the center of the room, where a glowing crystal rested on a pedestal. Its surface shimmered with a soft pulsing light. Touch it, Alvia instructed. Feel it, let it guide you. Ryan hesitated for a moment, but then, driven by the need to understand, he stepped forward. As his fingers brushed against the crystal, something incredible happened. The room seemed to disappear. His surroundings faded into nothingness, and for a brief moment he was floating in a vast sea of stars. He could feel the stars not as distant points of light, but as living, breathing entities. Their energy flowed through him, connecting him to everything in the universe. He could feel the warmth of the sun, the coolness of distant planets, the pulse of the galaxy itself. It was overwhelming. He wanted to pull away, but something inside him held him. There, the crystal was alive, and its energy was speaking to him, sharing with him the essence of the universe. He could feel Alva's presence in the background, guiding him, but it was as if everything, every living thing, every star, every planet was part of him. They were one. Time seemed to stretch, and for what felt like an eternity, Ryan was lost in the beauty and wonder of it all. He was no longer just a human on a distant ship. He was part of something much greater, something that transcended the boundaries of his body, his species, and his understanding of the world. But just as quick as it had started, the sensation faded. The room returned to its normal state, and Ryan was left standing there, his hand still on the crystal. He felt breathless, as though he had just experienced something beyond words. The memory of the stars of the universe itself was still with him, a part of him. He looked at Captain Vera, and he could see that she too was affected. She was breathing heavily, her eyes wide with wonder and awe. What was that? Ryan